Star Wars has never had more movies and shows in development, and yet some of the best Star Wars stories of the last decade haven't been told on screen at all. They've been told in video games. In fact, right now, Star Wars games are doing something the movies are struggling to do. They are creating new characters fans actually care about, telling focused, emotional stories, and generating hype that sometimes outshines theatrical announcements entirely. So here's the real question. Have Star Wars games quietly become more important than Star Wars movies? Because by the end of this video, that idea might not sound crazy at all. Let's start at the turning point. For years, Star Wars games were treated as side content, fun extras, expanded universe material for hardcore fans. Meanwhile, the movies were the main event. But something changed in the last decade. As the sequel trilogy split opinion and Disney film output slowed, games like Jedi Fallen Order stepped into a gap Star Wars didn't even realise it had created, not just in gameplay, but in storytelling. And that shift has completely changed the hierarchy of Star Wars storytelling. For a long time, Star Wars games were hit or miss. You had classic like Knights of the Old Republic, deep, choice-driven stories that proved Star Wars could thrive outside the Skywalker saga. But you also had rushed tie-ins, cancelled projects, and missed potential. Games that weren't trusted to lead Star Wars. They were allowed to support it. Even Battlefront 2, despite its strong campaign ideas and later redemption, was never positioned as a pillar of the franchise. And yet, something interesting happened. Fans never stopped playing. Every few years Battlefront 2 resurges. Online communities spike. Petitions and campaigns for Battlefront 3 go viral, especially again in 2025. That demand never disappears, because Star Wars works as a playable universe, and eventually Lucasfilm Games realised it. But this wasn't the breakthrough yet. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Star Wars movies now carry too much weight. Every theatrical release has to please lifelong fans, attract new audiences, justify massive budgets, fit into a tightly controlled canon roadmap. That pressure suffocates storytelling. Characters don't get time to grow, arcs are rushed, creative risks feel dangerous instead of exciting. Now compare that to the video games. Games allow 20 to 40 hours of character development, quiet moments between big events, player immersion instead of exposition. And no character proves this better than Cal Kestis. When Jedi Fallen Order released, expectations were cautious, and yet Cal Kestis quickly became one of the most beloved Star Wars characters created under Disney. Why? Because his story was allowed to breathe. We watched him struggle with trauma, reconnect with the Force, fail repeatedly, grow into his role naturally. Then Jedi Survivor took it even further, deepening his moral conflicts, his relationships, and his place in the wider galaxy. And now we're heading towards the third game, which should conclude his trilogy. And here's the key point. Cal Kestis no longer feels like a game character. He feels like a core Star Wars protagonist. So much so that fans now expect or even demand that he eventually crosses into live action. That's not something you say about side content. That's franchise level storytelling. And Cal isn't the exception anymore. He's the blueprint. And this is where everything clicks. Star Wars games aren't becoming important because they look better. They are becoming important because they are doing what Star Wars used to do best. Exploring new ideas, new characters, new eras without fear. Which brings us to the most exciting announcement in years. At the Game Awards 2025, Lucasfilm Games revealed Star Wars: Fate of the Old Republic. And the reaction was immediate. Excitement, speculation, hope. More than we often see for the movie announcements, including The Mandalorian and Grogu, which split opinion almost instantly. Why? Because this game promises true player agency, immersion-first storytelling, a return to the Old Republic era, new stories at the end of that era, a largely untouched period. This is Star Wars doing what games do best, letting the galaxy feel vast again. It's a spiritual successor to KOTOR, not by copying it, but by understanding why it mattered in the first place. And here's the real insight. Games can test ideas safely. They can introduce new Force philosophies, grey morality, fresh villains, unfamiliar conflicts. And if something works, then they can move it to animation, then live action, then cinema. Games are no longer the end of the pipeline, they're the beginning. So no, this doesn't mean Star Wars movies don't matter anymore, but it does mean that the balance has shifted. Right now, games are creating the most consistent new characters, generating organic fan excitement, and exploring eras that films are too cautious to touch. Cal Kestis proves it, the Old Republic proves it, the ongoing demand for Battlefront proves it. Star Wars games aren't replacing movies, they are showing them the way forward. And maybe that's exactly what Star Wars needs right now, a place where stories come first, pressure comes second, and the galaxy finally feels limitless again. Because if Star Wars remembers how to tell great stories here, everything else can follow. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, then check out a recent video, and hit subscribe so you never miss another Star Wars discussion.